Now, upon the green grass. That's not in Luke. John. Oh, it says in John, now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down. On the grass. You know, it's pretty clear they're going to have to sit on the grass unless there's a portion of the land that's not grass and Jesus really wanted them on the grass. I think it's obvious that he would have just said sit down, and they're just going to sit down, and they happen to be on the grass. Unless you really want to take it literally, like from Matthew, he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass. I think the main point is that they're sitting down. He's not trying to specify, I want you to sit down specifically on the grass. No, just sit down where you are, which happens to be grass. So I'm going to save grass to how it's explained in John. Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down. Yeah. I'll just put together upon the green grass. Although from John, now there was much grass in the place. So now there was much green grass. I guess that's just how it's going to have to go. From John, now there was much, and then green from Mark. Mark always has more explanation. There have been a few places here and there where it doesn't, but that's like a rule now. No one else explained the color of the grass. Grass is Matthew, Mark, and John. Now there was much green grass. I'm not using the upon the from Mark, unless I can put that, so the men sat down. Now, in the place. The from Mark. In the place. So this is dark blue. Actually, that might also be from Matthew. Sit down on the grass, yeah. Matthew, Mark, and John. And then place from John. Now, so the men sat down. The men, right? The multitude. Maybe I could put that. So the multitude sat down. Instead of so the men sat down. Well, no, because then it goes right into the men numbered about 5,000. Or maybe I could say, so the multitude sat down, including the women and children, and then I can add in, from the end of the story, 5,000 men. Yeah, I could say that. So the multitude sat down, and were about 5,000 men beside women and children. That'd probably be the best way to put it. So the multitude, how does it say in Mark? And they that did eat of the loaves were about 5,000 men. So the multitude sat down. And I could put and there were, and there's the word were about 5,000 men. I need the word there, and there were. And they that had eaten were about. Luke says, for they were about 5,000 men. That could work. The multitude sat down, and they were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. And in number, but still, multitude. I'm going to put multitude first. That's from Matthew. Sat down from John. John only. Sat down. And then it goes in John, in number about 5,000 men. But I have to say, and they were in number about 5,000 men beside women and children. So, and they were has to come first. In number next. And they were in number. For they were in Luke. So they were is in Luke. And they, that did eat of the loaves, were. So, and they were is all in Mark. Matthew. And they that had eaten were about 5,000. Okay, so and they were is Matthew and Mark. So Matthew, Mark, and Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they were in number about 5,000 men. So in number, I think, is only John, right? About 5,000 men. About 5,000 men. So yeah, in number is only John. In number. About 5,000. It doesn't say men in John. So it does say the men, but I'm going to save men for now. About 5,000 men. That's all John. So all four. About 5,000 men. From Matthew only, beside women and children. Beside women and children. And they sat down in ranks, by hundreds and by fifties. What I have is from John. Now there was much green grass in the place, so the multitude sat down. And they were in number about 5,000. So I have all that, but I have to put from Mark in ranks by hundreds and fifties. So the multitude sat down, and they sat down. Luke, and made them all sit down. That's all Luke. Made them all sit, because sat is in Mark. Down is both. Now it's also John. Now from Mark only, in ranks, by hundreds and by fifties. None of this is in Matthew, right? He commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass and took the 5 loaves. No, it just skips all that. Now there was much green grass in the place, so the multitude sat down. And made them all sit down. I'm just going to have to get rid of the multitude. Now there was much green grass in the place. I have to have the disciples made them all sit down, or they made them all sit down. Not just the men sat down, but they made the men sit down. From Mark, and they sat down in ranks by 150. They, from Mark, made them all sit down in ranks by hundreds and fifties. The men are sitting in ranks by hundreds and fifties, because the men were in number 5,000 men. So I can't say they made the multitude all sit down. The multitude did sit down, but it was the men who were in ranks. I don't know how it went, but it clearly says the men were about 5,000. So I think I'll just leave it like that. So they made them all sit down in ranks. Or maybe I could say they made the multitude sit down, and the men were in ranks by hundreds and fifties. Now, that's strange. Jesus said, make all the men sit down by fifties. So if I say they made the men sit down in ranks by hundreds and by fifties, that's a fail. He didn't say make them sit down by hundreds and fifties, but yet they did that. So I'm going to leave it as they made them, in case there's something weird going on where maybe the family makes up the hundreds, but the men are by 50. I don't know. I just don't know. That's fine, how it is.